just happened. Surely the opposite must be that something brought it into existence. But not only that, something that pushed it, prompted it, caused it, must have some type of will. Because a will-less thing can't bring something into existence. Would you agree with that? A will-less, meaning something that doesn't have a will.
That's not something I've thought of.
We can understand through some analogies. I mean, the analogies are never perfect for anything, right?
Yes.
But you can still give some analogies. Suppose you have, do you cook?
Badly, yes.
Fine. So you have your own kitchen, right? In your own home? Okay. And presumably there is a sink in your kitchen where there's a tap water and there's a fridge. Yep. And then some, kettle maybe if you have tea or coffee.
Yeah.
So all of these are things in place. I mean, whether there's a teapot and tea bags and, whether you ignite with an igniter or is it automatic, everything is in place. Now, imagine we want a cup of tea to be served to you, right? All of the materials, the raw materials, the raw ingredients are there in the kitchen.
Yeah.
If you like milk, it's in the fridge. Inside the fridge, the door's locked, door's closed, right?
Yeah.
So the door has to open, the milk bottle has to come out, and you have to, at a certain point, put the milk in before or after when you like it. The water has to turn on, the kettle has to go in there to collect the water then has to go to what? What we call the cooker or whatever, right? Or the electric maybe. These things need coordination so that eventually a final product of tea can be made. Now, if you look at this coordinated process, it's actually a process through intent and will. If no one willed it to happen, and you sit there in front of your kitchen for a million, trillion, zillion years, this tea will never happen. It will never happen because there is no intent to coordinate all of these things. So this just illustrates where when we have something as complex and organized as we can see, like the universe, it's very organized. The universe follows, whether you attribute it to a natural cause or a random cause, accidents or otherwise, the universe shows very much organization and harmony and complexity. It is a fact that is undisputable. The biological system, for example, that we are, they're very organized and very coherent. Very systematically put in place, regardless what the cause was behind it, right? Whether you attribute it to evolution, to cause a blind cause or a creator, the fact remains is these are irreducible complex things, biologically, for example, that we observe. So my only point to you is to think about it this way. Without intent and coordination, things to come about of that nature, it's not something that your mind, the intuitive mind, your logical mind will go by and say, you know what, that makes sense to me. You cannot actually come with this example of saying everything's possible even though it's improbable. Let me give you another example to illustrate my point, and then I want to see what your response is. Suppose we see a flying object just coming over and it looks like a MiG-27, a bomber, right? Plane. It's very close, it's not too far. And it dropped something. And it looks like a bomb. And it dropped, and guess what? It says, loves and kisses to James, Mansur and Hamza. That's the three of us, right?
Nice.
And then of course, God forbid, we all destroyed of this bomb.
Yeah.
People saw this because it was recorded by the cameras here and there, and say this is captured. Now, an intelligent person can come along and say, look, it's improbable that this is just a flying object, collecting, organizing by itself, coordinating by itself, coming over in this organization, which looks like a plane, drop something, a particular organization looks like a bomb, and had effects of a bomb, and actually destroyed it like a bomb. So one can argue that this is actually all a possibility out of these improbabilities. There's one chance that it can happen, and this is a chance. Now, if that was the reasoning given by an individual, say a very well-known, notable scientist or a philosopher, you and I would say, look, I don't buy it. I don't get it. You know why? There's something else that tells me that this is not something that I can accept. What is that something that, first of all, would you agree with that scientist philosopher that is this one of these possibilities? Or would you say, doesn't look like that? And if you don't agree with the philosopher or scientist, I would like to ask you why.
No, I'd have to disagree with what he says.
Why would you disagree? Because it's possible.
It's because it's so unlikely.
But yeah, unlikely, but it's possible, right?
Because it's so complicated. Yes, it's extremely unlikely.
But it's not impossible, is it?
No, but the worrying thing about your analogy describing such a specific and the universe
is more complex and more precise than my example.
But systems tend to become more complicated over time.
Exactly.
The universe, as we approach the singularity, was much more simple. The factors involved in the universe much more simple than those described in your analogy. So, do I have to be so incredulous that the universe arrived through natural or spontaneous means? You're saying the universe must have had a divine creator.
No. This is just a jump of a leap of faith in this direction. What I'm saying is, the universe to be as it is, as we understand now, has inherently certain characteristics which we call them to be very precise, as you discussed earlier. I'm talking about this precision system that is already inbuilt within this universe.
Have we arrived at apparent precision?
It's not apparent. It's obviously
no. Things are precision. Yeah. But is it designed or is it has it arisen?
Well, we can make.
Think about that. Yeah, think about the plane. Why don't you even ask the question? Is it designed? Or not? Maybe it looks like a plane, but it's actually not designed.
What Mansur is trying to get you to understand is the analogy. If we have real life examples in front of us in the real world.
I understand the analogy, but I dispute that it is useful.
You dispute applying it to the
origins of the universe.
Well, look, think of it like this, James. Because remember when I said to you that
if you speak with this one, maybe she's atheist.
What I tend to do,
maybe she accepts Islam because you are strong.
Which faith?
This girl.
Okay,
if I have two options,
It's better if you speak with her.
and I want to choose the best possible option. Obviously, I'm going to try and rationalize and reason things out over there, and I'm probably going to go for the one that seems to me to be the most plausible in terms of what I understand and what I know. So, what Mansur brought up as an example should, I think, indicate to us, given that we're reasonable people, that we try and see the obvious, that if the bomb that comes down and blows up things isn't something that can lead to chance.
I mean, we can attribute this as a chance accident that happened out of this one possibility which we give for the universe.
But it's highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely. The universe coming to existence is also highly unlikely.
Yeah. In fact, couldn't we argue that the universe is more highly unlikely?
That is my point.
Yeah.
But,
so I think that's what
but James seems to be disputing
James.
that it's not highly unlikely, it's very likely.
So in other words,
why is it very likely?
What James sees, what we see, what Mansur and I see as being highly unlikely, which is in front of us, i.e. what we see with our eyes, what we hear, what we smell, what we feel. Okay. If we amplify that and apply it to the universe, which is infinitely more complex, and the idea of the universe progressing from simplicity to something which seems to be infinitely more complex, I think any reasonable person would say that is far less likely than the bomb going off.
Sure. My third point, just to fully give you the picture, why I say it's more unlikely than this flying object and an object that drops like a bomb. The universe the universe even being there, while it shouldn't be there in the first place. Because if there's no creator, if there's no God, no originator, nothing to originate anything, then there should be nothing in the first place. So having something there is more really unlikely to be there by itself, like this universe, without giving a cause. So either the universe has to be always there to be logically understanding the situation, you have to come to certain options. Attribute this universe eternality, where the universe has to be always there, because if it wasn't there, then it's far unlikely than anything else, like this plane, to come here, rather than the universe coming into existence from nothing. Because from nothing to get into something, you can't have that. Very unlikely. So either you say the universe is always there to remove yourself from this problem, rational problem, or you say the universe was brought into existence, but the one who brought into existence is the one who's eternal, with the will and intent and the knowledge and the power. To me, that makes more sense, more likely, more rational than attributing eternality to the universe and giving will, intent, power, consciousness, and so on.
Or invoking randomness, etc. Randomness to the idea that the universe just merely arose and then it just merely progressed from a state of absolute simplicity to this amazing... So, I mean, just to round up, James, these arguments that we're putting across to you, we understand them to be arguments that should touch the heart of people who think rationally, who think deeply, and just look at the world in the best way that they can. Like you and I, we acknowledged from the beginning, is we're not scientists. We're simple people, right? So I mean, in Islam, there's something called the fitrah, which is it's a type of neutrality that a person has. I.e., a child is born in a pure state, but that child may become corrupt over a period of time if it is influenced by various convoluted ideas and conceptions and philosophies and so on and so forth. But we believe that the fitrah is always there. It's just a case of just brushing aside those ideas that are not intuitive, implausible, and I think that the idea that the universe randomly arose and then progressed from simplicity to this sophisticated form, I think goes against plausibility. That's it. I know you're tired.
I think I agree.
Yeah, sure.
Let me go now.
Please.
A pleasure talking to you.
Listen, think about this. James, come back again next week if you want to carry on. We'll,
James,
pleasant conversation.
while letting you go, the examples that we are giving you actually is not something that we discovered ourselves. You'll be surprised that this is the thought processes that are invoked or provoked, you can say, within the Quran, the revelation that we believe is from Allah, from God. The one we are trying to understand and accept eventually is the one who, in the Quran, the book that came to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, it directs us to think that way, to question that way, to reflect that way. And if you were to read the Quran, I'm sure you are, if you haven't yet, open up and look at how the Quran describes the origin of the universe and how it came to be. In the arguments, there are arguments, but the reasons or reflections that the God wants us to reflect on.
Agreed. Again, I will. Suddenly, our discussion has up till now been about the origin of the universe and the reasons for it. Then, I disagree with you, coherently up to now. But what you've just suggested about the Holy Quran being the Word of God, that is a different argument.
Correct.
Entirely.
Yeah.
And that's when
I think what we're mentioning is that the argument that we put across to you, the simplicity of it is what the Quran actually tells people who have doubt regarding God. What the Quran says is reflect over the creation of God. If you're finding it difficult to reflect on God, reflect on His creation, and the creation itself, given the arguments that we've been through, should prompt you to the understanding that, firstly, that the universe had a beginning. Secondly, the universe, very unlikely that it arose through chance, and so therefore the opposite is more plausible. That's it. That's what the Quran is saying. And a sincere heart, a sincere individual who reflects upon these understandings should come to that conclusion that there has to be one who brought the universe into existence, and that this thing must have certain attributes. It brought it into existence, so it must have a will, and it must have a certain level of understanding, knowledge, and it should have a certain level of power. But you know what? That would be a discussion for next week.
Take care, yeah?
Cheers.
Thank you,
No worries.
been a
Anytime.
pleasure.
No, I'm trying to say, okay, that many people that speak and come in and disapprove with the conclusion of there's a creator, they were mentally lazy. I realized they didn't think. And they're scared to go on that journey.
Sure.
No, this journey is very simple. My point is...
No, I can't do that. I say, actually, you're saying you're actually in an existential crisis. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying for you to be concluded, to disprove something, where you don't have no knowledge of it, you don't even look into it.
But that's not
No, we're not
the question is,
how long you was agreeing with me when I'm going along?
They always like to get their way.
Well, you realize if
They're never wrong,
you
they're always
it will
right.
make you look so clever.